Death at Daisy's Folly. Chapter 31. The end is what the means have made it. John Morley, Critical Miscellanies. Monday morning was chill and moist, and the fog was draped in the trees like tulle around a lady's shoulders. Subdued, the guests took their departure in small groups, or one by one, until only a few were left. When the prince was prepared to leave, Kate, Charles, and the Warwicks gathered on the stone steps to say goodbye and wish him a safe journey to Sandringham, whence he was returning. "And there," he said expansively, "I shall gather Alex and her retinue, and we shall make our way to Scotland and some fine grouse shooting," he said. He raised an imaginary gun to his shoulder, sighted it, and said, "Blam!" Kate, who had not seen this unprincely gesture before, hid a smile of amusement. Lord Warwick bowed from the waist. "We have been deeply honoured to have you with us, your highness," he said formally. "We hope you will return very soon." The prince patted his stout midriff. "I certainly shall if your chef continues to prepare those quails stuffed with foie gras and garnished with oysters. Birds fit for a king." He turned to Daisy. "My deepest thanks for your hospitality, Lady Warwick. It has certainly been a most memorable weekend." Daisy dropped a deep curtsy. "I fear it is one we are not likely to forget, sire, though I am certain we should all wish to." "Ah, yes," the prince said reflectively. "I think we can count ourselves fortunate to have avoided a scandal." He raised his eyebrows at Lord Warwick. "You know what you are to do, Brookie?" "I am to inform the coroner, who by good chance, sir, is close to the family, that Mr. Knightley ran amok and murdered Lord Wallace and a footman, then stole your horse. He died in his attempted escape." "Excellent. Kirk Smythe will testify on my behalf, if required. He left early this morning to escort Temple to Portsmouth, where the man will be handed over to the captain of one of the Queen's warships bound for Bombay, and I shall personally inform Mama of the events of the weekend." The prince, Kate thought, seemed well pleased with the way in which the matter had been disposed. He turned to Charles with a vast smile. "Ah, Charles, once again I must thank you for your first-rate investigation. If it had not been for you, the scheme would have escaped detection. Indeed, it might even have succeeded. All of us are in your debt." Charles bowed slightly. "It was mostly luck, sir, and Kate's skilful questioning of the laundry maid. If she hadn't persuaded the girl to name Temple, I might still be trying to discover recognizable fingerprints of the whiskey bottle and pistol. And it was a great good luck that the laundress was able to identify the brand of Knightley's cigar." The prince shook his head. "I've always told Milford those cheap cigars of his were abominable," he said. "I never understood why the deuce he fancied the filthy things." Kate turned to Daisy. "What's to become of Meg?" she asked. "What she did was very wrong, but she is a good girl who was led astray by her love for Marsh. I hope she won't be turned out." "I think not," Daisy said. "She could have no idea of the damage her actions might cause, and she has already paid most dearly." "Ah, yes," the prince said. "Love can make people behave quite foolish." He became lost in thought for a moment, then roused himself, turning to Charles, and said, "Speaking of love, when is the great day? I'm sure Alex will join me in wishing to attend." "Lord Warwick and I would like to come too, of course," Daisy said. Kate felt a rush of alarm. If royalty and aristocracy were to attend the wedding, they would be followed by the press and crowds of the curious, and the ceremony would be turned into a circus. But she need not have been concerned, as Charles came to her rescue. "We plan to, sir, marry very quietly on account of my brother's situation, you see. As to the date, we have not yet set it." He took Kate's hand and pulled her close to him. "When we leave here, we're going to Somersworth to tell my family the news. Kate refuses to fix a date until Mother has been consulted." "Commendable, my dear," the prince said approvingly. "Quite commendable. I am sure that the Dowager Baroness will be delighted by her son's choice of a bride, and she will be relieved by the prospect of a continuance of the Somersworth line." Kate felt a small shiver of cold apprehension. She was not sure at all that Charles's mother would be pleased, and as for the continuance of Somersworth line, it was something she and Charles had not yet discussed. She supposed there would be children, of course, although Bill Bardwell was not exactly overjoyed with the thought. "Now, Charles," the prince went on, "you must not forget our talk about the National Crime Laboratory. I am convinced that you are just the man to administer such an undertaking. I realize that it will be some time before your family responsibilities permit it, but we shall speak of the matter again." "Yes, sir," Charles said, resigned. The prince straightened his waistcoat and hung his walking stick over his arm. "Well, I suppose it is time to be off. No need to confound schedules all up and down the line." Lord Warwick bowed. "Lady Warwick insists on having the honour of driving you to the station, sir. The pony cart is ready in front of the stable." "Then we shall be off," the prince said. As Kate and Charles stood alone together on the steps, waving goodbye to the prince and Daisy as they trotted down the lane in the pony cart, Kate said, "What do you suppose will happen to their relationship, Charles?" Charles put his arms around Kate's shoulders. "I should think that HRH will shortly convince himself that it is time to find another mistress," he said. "Daisy is a fascinating woman, but she will continue to invite controversy, something he can no longer afford." The door opened behind them and Bradford stepped out. "Oh, there you are. I've been looking for you. Poor Ellie is feeling beastly, I'm afraid, and has asked me to escort her back to London. I wonder, Charles, old man, would you be so kind as to drive the motor car back to Marsden Manor? I could send Lawrence along to help out." "But I'm returning with Kate," Charles said. "We were planning to stop at Somerthworth to tell Mother about her engagement." "That's all right, Charles," Kate said eagerly. "I would love to have a ride in the motor car. Perhaps you can even teach me to drive it." Bradford shook his head in mock horror. "I fancied the Dowager Baroness would look askance at your riding a bicycle, Kate. What will she think if you arrived at the tiller of an automobile?" "I'm afraid Mother must make certain concessions," Charles said with a laugh. "The future Lady Somersworth is likely to be quite irrepressible." Historical note. The Darling Daisy affair was the most notorious royal affair of its day. The Prince of Wales had enjoyed many women before he took Daisy to his bed, and his profligate habits, this corpulent voluptuary, Rudyard Kipling called him, were well known throughout the kingdom. Victoria's conviction that his recklessness would incite the poor to destroy the crown was fed by diatribes against him in the press and in Parliament. "The Prince of Wales was never dishonoured the country by becoming king," said one anti-monarchist. The affair began in 1889 when Daisy Brooke, Countess of Warwick, went to Marlborough House to beg the Prince of Wales to intercede with an angry wife of Charles Beresford, Daisy's former lover, who had threatened her with public humiliation over a foolish letter that she had written. "Suddenly I saw him looking at me in a way all women understand," Daisy said, and they became lovers. Their relationship continued until sometime in 1896 or 97. Daisy was a complex woman whose real desires to do good were constantly overwhelmed by her poor judgment, abominable business sense, and enormous extravagances. It is entirely plausible to imagine, as we have done in this fiction, that the royal relationship ended because the impulsive Daisy, who was deeply interested in radical political causes, posed too many dangers to the monarchy, and that her efforts to convert the prince to her ideas were viewed by many at Buckingham Palace as profoundly threatening. Daisy was replaced in 1898 by Alice Keppel, a much more tractable, docile woman who did as she was told. Bertie became king in 1901. The Keppel liaison continued until his death in 1910. The story of Daisy's affair with Bertie does not end with their sexual liaison, however. In 1914, on the eve of the Great War, Daisy threatened to sell Bertie's letters, including the adored little Daisy wife, letter we quote in the head note to chapter 21, to an American publisher unless Buckingham Palace paid her £100,000. A year later, her scheme paid off, and she was given £64,000 to hand over the letters. A few, however, made their way to Switzerland, where they came to light in the 1960s, and with them the story of Daisy's blackmail. The money Daisy received for the letters was not enough to erase her debts, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway, since she never changed her spendthrift ways, foolishly lavishing money on well-meant but ill-conceived causes. She became an avowed socialist and ran as candidate for Parliament in 1923, but she was never accepted by the people she thought to help. Even her efforts to give Eastern Lodge to the Trade Union Congress as an international socialist university were ultimately rejected. The long-suffering Lord Warwick died in 1924 on the verge of bankruptcy, and Daisy's assets by then had dwindled to almost nothing. "When they write my obituary notice," she wrote in her memoirs, "it should be a record of a woman who feverishly designed many things for the betterment of human lives, while the green gods sat smiling at the puny efforts of an imprisoned soul trying to find a way out of escape." In 1930s, she retired to Eastern Lodge, where she lived as an eccentric recluse. When thieves ransacked the estate 2 months prior to her death in 1938, they found only very little to carry off. In the World War II, what remained of the park was turned into a military airfield, and in 1947, the hulk of the lodge was demolished. Nothing remains of Daisy's Folly. This has been the third book in the Victorian Mysteries series. I very much enjoy this series so far, and I definitely am looking forward to reading more of the stories. In fact, I have already procured the next 2 installments in the series, as well as I have the number 8 in a series of a total of 12. As stated previously, I do intend to read them all, though it will take some time to get through, as each of them are in the estimates of around 300 pages. There will also be other readings in between, readings of more well-known books, but I enjoy reading books like this because the classics, well, everyone has read the classics. Everyone knows of the classics. I don't think a lot of people knows about the Victorian Mystery series. But perhaps you do now. And perhaps you might even be inclined to pick up a book that seems less inviting than some of the classics. Go out, find an interesting book, read it, and tell people whether you enjoyed it or not, because that is also a part of reading. You can read something and not like it. That is perfectly okay. I like this series so far, which is why I'm continuing to read it aloud. And chances are, given that it's the same author, that I will like it all the way to the end. I might not agree with some of the choices made, as in terms of writing and world building, but I can definitely admire and appreciate the story told. So, until the next book or the next video, as I make those as well, take care.